Please share the Ruby on Rails recently.
Ruby on Rails is a popular web application framework written in Ruby. It uses the Model View Controller (MVC) architecture and provides default structures for databases, web services, and web pages. Rails emphasizes the use of well-known software engineering patterns and paradigms, including convention over configuration, COC, don't repeat yourself, RI, and the active record pattern. Do you need help with a specific aspect of Ruby on Rails?
Please share don't repeat yourself.
Don't repeat yourself. RI is a principle in software development that aims to reduce the repetition of code. The idea is that every piece of knowledge or logic should be defined in a single place within a system. This makes the code base more maintainable, easier to understand, and less prone to errors. In Ruby on Rails, this principle is often achieved through the use of helper methods, partials, and shared libraries. Are you looking for examples of how to implement DRI in Rails?
Please share about Ruby.
Ruby is a dynamic, open-source programming language with a focus on simplicity and productivity. It has an elegant syntax that is natural to read and easy to write. Ruby is object-oriented, meaning everything in Ruby is an object, including primitive data types. Ruby is known for its flexibility and expressiveness, which makes it a popular choice for web development, scripting, and prototyping. It is also the language behind the Ruby on Rails framework, which streamlines web application development. Is there a specific aspect of Ruby you are interested in learning more about?
Please share more about Ruby and the Ruby on Rails, the relationship between them.
Ruby is the programming language, while Ruby on Rails, often just called Rails, is a web application framework built using Ruby. The relationship between the two is similar to that between a language and a toolkit or library designed to simplify specific tasks, in this case, web development. Ruby provides the foundation with its object-oriented, flexible syntax and features. Rails builds on this foundation, leveraging Ruby's strengths to offer a structured way to create web applications. Rails uses Ruby to define models, views, and controllers, the MVC architecture, manage databases, handle routing, and more. This combination allows developers to write clean, maintainable code efficiently. Rails also incorporates several Ruby gems, libraries, or packages, extending its functionality and making common web development tasks easier. Do you have any specific questions about Ruby or Rails?
Please share the Ruby gems recently popular in Ruby on Rails.
Some popular Ruby gems recently used in Ruby on Rails projects include Devise, a flexible authentication solution for Rails, providing ready-made user management features. A gem for authorization, allowing you to define user permissions with policy classes. A background job processing gem that uses Redis for managing tasks asynchronously. Carrier Wave, used for file uploads, making it easy to handle and store files in Rails applications. Active Admin, a gem for creating elegant and easy-to-use admin interfaces. A pagination gem that helps manage and display large sets of records. Do you need detail on any specific gem or how to use them in a project?
Please share the most famous one.
One of the most famous Ruby gems is Devise. It's widely used for authentication in Rails applications. Devise provides a comprehensive suite of features, including user registration, login, password recovery, account locking, and more. It's highly configurable and integrates seamlessly with Rails, making it a go-to choice for handling user authentication.
Please share one more.
Another well-known and widely used gem is Sidekick. Sidekick is a background job processing gem that allows you to run tasks asynchronously, making it ideal for handling tasks that don't need to be completed instantly, like sending emails or processing large amounts of data. It uses Redis to manage job queues, ensuring efficient and reliable job processing.
Please share some gems about server side.
For inside tasks in Ruby on Rails, some popular gems include Puma, a high-performance web server designed for running Ruby and Rails applications. It's known for its speed and concurrency. Unicorn, another web server for Rails, focused on simplicity and performance. It's well-suited for handling many simultaneous requests. Passenger, a web server and application server that simplifies deployment and management of Ruby applications, integrating well with Apache and Nginx. Thin, a lightweight and fast web server for Ruby, often used in development environments for its speed. Rack. Although not a server itself, Rack is a modular interface for developing web applications in Ruby. It provides a common layer for connecting web servers and web applications. Would you like more details on any of these gems?
Please share use Docker to deploy Ruby on Rails servers.
Using Docker to deploy a Ruby on Rails server can simplify the process by encapsulating your application and its dependencies in a container. Here's a basic outline of the steps involved. 1. Install Docker. Ensure Docker is installed on your machine. 2. Create a Docker file. This file defines your container's environment. A basic Docker file for a Rails app might look like this. You can see the code in our conversation history. 3. Create a Docker Compose file. This file helps manage multi-container Docker applications. Here's an example, Docker Compose IML. You can see the code in our conversation history. 4. Build and run the containers. Use Docker Compose to build and run your containers. You can see the code in our conversation history. 5. Database setup. Run database migrations inside the container. You can see the code in our conversation history. This setup provides a basic structure for deploying a Rails app using Docker. You can customize the Docker file and Docker Compose file according to your specific needs. Do you need help with any particular part of this setup?
Are there any efficiency issues in use Docker to deploy Rails service?
Using Docker to deploy Rails services can offer numerous benefits, such as consistency across environments and easier dependency management. However, there are some potential efficiency issues to be aware of. 1. Performance overhead. Containers have a small performance overhead compared to running directly on the host machine, though it's usually minimal with modern container runtimes like Docker. 2. Storage management. Docker images and containers can consume significant disk space, especially if not managed properly. Regular cleanup of unused images and containers is essential. 3. Network latency. Inter-container communication can introduce slight latency compared to services running on the same host without Docker. This is typically negligible, but can add up in high-performance applications. 4. Resource contention. If not configured correctly, containers might compete for system resources, CPU, memory, impacting performance. Proper resource limits and reservations should be set. 5. Complexity and configuration. Setting up Docker for a Rails application requires additional configuration and maintenance, such as managing Docker files and Docker Compose files, which can add complexity. 6. Dependency on Docker. While Docker offers portability, it also introduces a dependency on the Docker environment. This means that your deployment pipeline and infrastructure need to be Docker compatible. Despite these potential issues, many of these can be mitigated with proper configuration and management. The benefits of using Docker often outweigh the drawbacks, especially for maintaining consistent development, testing, and production environments. Do you have any specific concerns or scenarios in mind?
Please share the most asked interview in Ruby on Rails, the issue, the question, and also the answer.
A common interview question for Ruby on Rails developers often revolves around the MVC architecture. So here's a typical question, issue, and answer. Question: explain the MVC, Model View Controller architecture in Ruby on Rails. Issue: this question assesses your understanding of how Rails applications are structured and how data, presentation, and logic are separated. Answer: in Ruby on Rails, MVC stands for Model, View, and Controller. Here's how it breaks down. Model, responsible for managing the data and business logic. It interacts with the database, defines relationships between different data entities using Active Record, and performs validations. View, handles the presentation layer of the application. It renders HTML and responds to user requests by displaying data from the controller's instance variables. Controller acts as an intermediary between the model and view. It processes user requests, retrieves data from the model, and passes it to the view for display. It also handles actions like creating, updating, and deleting records in the database based on user input. This answer demonstrates your knowledge of Rails' fundamental architecture and how data flow is managed throughout the application.
Please share more asked question in the interview.
Certainly. Here are a few more commonly asked interview questions for Ruby on Rails developers. 1. Explain the difference between include and extend in Ruby modules. Issue tests your understanding of Ruby's module system and when to use include versus extend. Answer: include is used to mix module methods into a class as instance methods. Extend is used to mix module methods into a class as class methods. 2. What is the purpose of active record in Rails? Issue tests your knowledge of Active Record's role in database interactions within Rails applications. Answer: Active Record is the ORM, Object Relational Mapping framework in Rails, which abstracts database tables into Ruby objects. It provides methods for querying, creating, updating, and deleting records in the database. 3. What are RESTful routes and why are they important in Rails? Issue assesses your understanding of RESTful principles and their implementation in Rails routing. Answer: RESTful routes in Rails adhere to REST, representational state transfer conventions, mapping HTTP verbs to CRUD, create, read, update, delete operations on resources. They promote clean, predictable API design and simplify application maintenance. 4. Explain how migrations work in Rails and why they are useful. Issue tests your familiarity with Rails database schema management and version control. Answer: migrations are Ruby classes that define changes to the database schema. They allow developers to incrementally update the database structure, track changes over time, and easily roll back to previous states. Migrations ensure consistency across different environments. 5. What is CSRF, cross-site request forgery, and how does Rails protect against it? Issue tests your knowledge of web security concepts and Rails' built-in security measures. Answer: CSRF is an attack where unauthorized commands are transmitted from a user that the web application trusts. Rails protects against CSRF attacks by generating unique tokens for each session and embedding them in forms and AJAX requests. These tokens are verified on server side to ensure requests originate from the expected user. These questions cover a range of topics commonly explored in Ruby on Rails interviews, from fundamental concepts to more specific technical details. Understanding these concepts thoroughly can greatly enhance your preparation for such interviews.
Please share more questions.
Certainly, here are a few more interview questions that are commonly asked for Ruby on Rails positions. 6. What are callbacks in Rails? Provide examples of when you might use them. Issue tests your understanding of Rails lifecycle hooks and how they are used for automating actions. Answer: callbacks are methods that are called at certain moments of an object's lifecycle in Rails models. Examples include before save, after create, and around destroy. They are used for tasks like sanitizing data before saving, sending notifications after creating an object, or executing custom logic around database operations. 7. Explain the difference between has many, belongs to, and has one associations in Rails models. Issue tests your knowledge of active record associations and their usage. Answer: has many indicates a one-to-many relationship where one object can have multiple associated objects. Belongs to indicates a one-to-one relationship where an object belongs to one associated object. Has one indicates a one-to-one relationship similar to belongs to, but it's used when the foreign key is on the associated model. 8. How does caching work in Rails, and what are different types of caching mechanisms available? Issue assesses your understanding of caching strategies in Rails applications to improve performance. Answer: Rails provides various caching mechanisms such as page caching, action caching, fragment caching, and Russian doll caching, nested fragment caching. These mechanisms store generated content in memory or on disk to reduce the need for repeated computation and database queries, thereby improving response times. 9. What are turbolinks in Rails? How do they enhance front-end performance? Issue. Test your familiarity with turbolinks and its impact on front-end behavior in Rails applications. Answer. Turbolinks is a feature in Rails that improves page load times by using AJAX to fetch only the body of the page when navigating between links. This allows for faster navigation and reduced server load compared to full-page reloads. Turbolinks can be enabled or disabled per page and can be combined with other front-end frameworks like Stimulus.js for enhanced interactivity. 10. Discuss the asset pipeline in Rails. What problems does it solve, and how has it evolved in recent Rails versions? Issue assesses your understanding of managing and optimizing front-end assets in Rails applications. Answer. The asset pipeline in Rails is a system for managing and compiling CSS, JavaScript, and image assets. It aims to improve site performance by compressing assets, concatenating files, and caching assets in production environments. In recent Rails versions, the asset pipeline has evolved to better support modern JavaScript frameworks, ES6 syntax, and improve caching strategies. These questions delve deeper into specific aspects of Ruby on Rails development, covering both technical details and best practices. Understanding these topics thoroughly can help you prepare effectively for Rails interviews.
Please share more deeper question.
Certainly. Here are some deeper interview questions that explore advanced concepts and best practices in Ruby on Rails. 11. Explain how to optimize database queries in Rails. Issue. Test your knowledge of active record query optimization techniques. Answer. Techniques include eager loading, includes selective column fetching, pluck, using database indexes, minimizing N+1 queries with joins or preload, and leveraging caching strategies for frequently accessed data. 12. What is the purpose of the asset pipeline in Rails 6? How has it changed from previous versions? Issue. Assesses your understanding of recent updates and improvements in Rails' asset management. Answer. In Rails 6, the asset pipeline has been refactored to integrate more seamlessly with modern JavaScript frameworks like Webpack. It offers better support for ES6 CSS preprocessing with tools like Sass or PostCSS, and allows developers to manage front-end dependencies more effectively through Webpacker integration. 13. Discuss the differences between session and cookie storage in Rails. When would you use each? Issue. Test your understanding of session management and data persistence strategies in Rails applications. Session storage stores session data on the server side, default in Rails, ensuring data security, but potentially impacting performance with large datasets or high concurrency. Cookie storage stores session data client-side in encrypted cookies, reducing server load, but potentially exposing data to tampering. Use session storage for sensitive data and cookie storage for lighter data requirements. 14. Explain the use of concerns in Rails models. Provide an example of when you might use a concern. Issue. Test your understanding of modularizing and reusing code in Rails models. Answer. Concerns in Rails allow you to extract reusable code snippets from models, controllers, or views into separate modules. They improve code organization, readability, and maintainability. For example, you might create a searchable concern to encapsulate search functionality across multiple models. 15. What are background jobs in Rails, and why are they important? Discuss different background job processing libraries you're familiar with. Issue. Assesses your knowledge of asynchronous processing and scalability in Rails applications. Answer. Background jobs handle time-consuming tasks asynchronously, improving application responsiveness and scalability. Libraries like Sidekick, Delayed Job, and REST provide frameworks for managing job queues, retries, and scheduling tasks. They integrate with Redis or other storage systems to process jobs outside the main request response cycle. These deeper questions require a solid understanding of Ruby on Rails architecture, best practices, and advanced features. They aim to gauge your ability to design robust, scalable, and efficient applications using Rails.
Please go deeper.
Certainly. Let's dive into some even deeper interview questions that explore more complex aspects of Ruby on Rails development. 16. Discuss the concept of